How's it going, guys? We are back for another episode of the Cerebral Spice Rack. As always, I'm your host, Everett Heath. And if you want to introduce yourself real quick, Nick?
Yeah, my name is Chris. You just call me a fighter of liberty. Here to support my friend Everett. Last day in California, or last podcast in California.
Yeah. Basically. But yeah, today we're going to be going over some of the really horrific stuff that's happening in the world, as far as society collapsing and the economy collapsing. It's got me really worried. But anyways, so yeah, obviously as you guys heard, we're going to be talking about the collapse today of the economy and society at large. As obvious, it's something I'm very worried about. I really think that people need to get to a safe place, geologically, not just geologically, but geopolitically. Obviously the last episode we did was about California, or no, it's 2 episodes ago was about California. I don't think California is going to be a good place at all for this impending collapse. People are going to be so scared. People here don't know how to care for themselves. They don't, or at least most of the people here aren't responsible for themselves, aren't very responsible for their families. And when shit hits the fan, it's going to get really bad. People are going to be starving. They're going to be, going to their neighbors, and if their neighbors don't have resources, it could become violent. There could be a lot of theft, a lot of very basically horrific things that could happen.
Suspension of civility.
Yeah. So if we could just get this information out there so that we could save as many people's lives and incomes as possible, obviously money is not the main factor here. I'm moving to a place that I'm not going to have as high of an income that I have here, but I'm going there for freedom, for the prospect of just to be able to live my life without the boot on my neck that I feel here in California. And it's not just California. I think it's a lot of other places in the United States and the world. Europe is obviously looking really bad. But anyways, let's get into some of these links so I can show you guys the situation here. So first one I'm going to get into is the shortages that have been happening ever since COVID. So this is from Popular Mechanics. These 18 items are in short supply due to the COVID-related supply chain issues. So we'll just roll through these really quick. We got sriracha. It's undergoing a shortage. Tampons, garage doors, computer chips, lumber, toilet paper. That's an obvious one because of the pandemic. That was probably the first one to go. Bicycles, baby formula, motorcycles, potatoes, cream cheese, gas, obviously, coins, bubbly or champagne, chlorine, which is a weird one, maple syrup, another weird one, blood, and then Christmas trees. So obviously some of these are more serious than others. Obviously blood, baby formula, and electronic chips being probably some of the most important. Talking about baby formula, I mean, mothers can't feed their babies. Like, we don't have wet nurses anymore where you can bring down, your baby to a local hospital to get their food. A lot of these mothers, could you turn that off?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. A lot of these mothers, they have, they can't produce milk on their own, so they have to, supplement with formula. And this is one thing that's been going out of stock, and it's been, obviously the price has been increasing dramatically. So, that's a big problem there, because a lot of mothers, if their kids can't have food or can't get food, then that's obviously a big problem. And I really hope that, some of these shortages start to lessen up, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to get a lot worse. Obviously another big one is gas. Gas is really expensive. There's a short supply of it. It's almost $7 a gallon here in California, and I drive a V8 Challenger, and that gets anywhere from 15 to 23 miles per gallon. It's really hurting me, and I'm happy I haven't had to drive anywhere over the past couple weeks, or at least that much. And it hasn't hit me as hard as it has hit a lot of other people. But it's just very, very worrying that some of the basic supplies that we need to run our, Western first world life are, coming under attack, basically, from this new world order, basically, whatever's going on in the world. Do you have anything to add on that, Chris?
Yeah, I ran out of gas on the way here.
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of these commodities that the American public enjoy, they're going to have to, the federal government, I think at some point previously was dependent upon foreign exportation of a lot of these goods, especially the baby formula story.
Mm.
Do you remember that with the Texas plant? They would something related to
Yeah.
Rabbit. He was having to really improvise with how to make up for those shortcomings.
Yeah, I remember that story. I can't remember the specifics of it, but I think it had something to do with the FDA. They wouldn't allow certain baby formula on the market, and this is kind of another point to that. But the FDA didn't allow or doesn't allow any formula from Europe, and hopefully they change that. But obviously, this is a government-induced problem. The FDA could approve more places to make formula and approve the transactions coming from other countries, the imports of baby formula, and they're not doing anything as far as I know. And this is really sad because I think, a lot of people rely on these things, and if they can't get them, then what are we gonna do? Like, this is the problem that you guys are starting to see here. If people don't have the things they need, but they're gonna get desperate, and desperate times create desperate people. Desperate people result in desperate actions. So obviously, this is one thing to look out for: shortages.
It's crazy. The article that you're showing here doesn't even mention that aspect of it, about the federal government choking a lot of the resources.
No. This is just talking about what's in shortage, and obviously, like, some of these things are food products, but food is going to be in a large deficit this year and the coming years, not only because of our own shortcomings, but obviously because of the war in Ukraine. I've heard Ukraine makes up almost 40% of the global wheat production, so that's going to hit hard, because what a lot of people don't understand is these food prices aren't hitting right now. We're in the middle of it, and we aren't going to understand the full effects months down the line, because they have to get the wheat, they have to mill it into grain, the grain has to be processed into food products, and that's a couple month to year long process. So the war started back in the end of February, and we're just now in the middle of starting to see some of the after effects of that.
I remember even monitoring the rising tensions that predated 2022. So it even prior to February, I would argue that was kind of in the midst of brewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The COVID and the pandemic and lockdowns, and now the war, and then the election have all contributed to this. So hopefully they'll get better. I mean, I think they will eventually, but I think we're going to go through a really hard time here. So stock up on stuff. Obviously, don't panic buy. But if you need things, make sure you have at least a month-long supply of some of these, more needed commodities, just to make sure you and your family get through this. So, that's what I care about. We need as many good people getting through this as possible. So, is there anything you wanted to share before I move on to the next topic?
Nothing that I'd be able to really go into detail about, but being closely connected to your community is never really a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Relying on your neighbors. A lot of people don't talk to their neighbors. So make sure you have good relationships with your community, and this goes back to the point of maybe getting out of a bigger city, where you don't know anybody, and going to a smaller town, maybe a rural area where everybody does support each other.
And it's sad that a lot of the increasingly preconceived notions of one's neighbors derived from a lot of what the news tells you to believe. Mm-hmm. If you just walk outside and talk to your neighbor, you'll probably have a better understanding of how the reality is than what's on the news.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, so we're moving on to the next one. So this, trying to kind of changing topics here a little bit. But this is a story that came out back in March. So obviously the gas prices were getting were going up a lot because of the war, and I would argue because of Biden as well, because Biden has a big play in the reason why we don't have a lot of oil reserves, or not reserves, but why the prices are going up so much, because he canceled pipelines and he canceled oil and gas drilling on federal lands, and that hasn't really gotten any better. So, anyways, the story. So, Biden announced the largest ever oil reserve release. So, this is back in March. So, the White House on Thursday announced plans for the largest ever release of oil from the United States strategic reserves. And they said they would release an average of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months, resulting in a total release of about 180 million barrels. And I was looking up the details. So, our strategic reserves, they cap out at 760 million barrels. So this is probably about like 15 to 20% of those total reserves, and these reserves are for emergencies. This is like if there's wartime, if there's a national disaster, we need fuel reserves there to be able to to pull from when there's a disaster or an emergency. Rising costs, in my opinion, I don't think is that big of an emergency because the Biden administration and other federal administrations, they can do a lot more to help gas prices go down. Including getting rid of gas taxes temporarily, getting rid of some regulations that are hampering oil companies from drilling on new lands. There's a lot more they can do rather than releasing oil from our strategic reserves. That's why they call them strategic reserves. Like, it's for an emergency. Like, we get invaded or there's a war. Like, we need these. So it's 100 million there, and then the next link I got is they actually released more. So this was just, when was this put out? This was June 14th, so actually last week. So this, the U.S. Department of Energy today announced the fourth notice of sale of 45 million barrels of crude oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So this is another, big release of our reserves, and I don't think this is a good thing. Like, getting rid of our reserves in a time where we really might need it. I really believe there's going to be a national emergency, national crisis, or a war happening, especially the threat of Russia. So we're going to need as much oil reserves as possible, and we need to be ramping up oil production, not lessening it, as I'm sure some of you have seen from Biden clips before he won the election, saying that he's going to do everything in his power to get rid of, our reliance on gas. Which, there's some of it that's not a bad idea. Obviously, we should diversify our energy consumption. But as far as getting rid and lowering the production of a very needed resource at this time is one of the stupidest and most just asinine ideas and plans that I've ever heard of. This is it's scary because this, like I said, when we actually need it and we don't have anything in the reserves, it could be so bad.
It's so bad. It's either contrived out of pure incompetence or malice.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way any reasonable person would do it in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
instead unyell fire. You can't just take back having yelled fire in a crowded theater. The investors, which oversaw a lot of those pipelines and oil, they were snapped into a frenzy long ago. So on top of gas and oil, that's a really barren land to walk across in terms of solutions. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult minefield to navigate.
Mm-hmm. So I think I was doing some research on this earlier, and I think the current reserves are at about 400 million barrels out of the 700 total. So we're almost to half of our capacity. So it's not going to be good when we actually have to tap those reserves for an emergency.
There's too many moving parts to it for any amicable solution to be foreseen in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move on to our next. Okay, and this is what we're going to get to. So we have the lowest reserve. Okay, so this is from Reuters, and the title is U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve drops the lowest level since 1987, and obviously that was this is before the Cold War was over. I think that ended in 89, right?
It was Reagan.
91. Yeah. But anyways, like it has been like this for 13 plus 22, that's 45 years, 35 years. So it's very concerning to say the least. Anything here? So the amount of crude oil in Strategic Petroleum Reserve dropped by 5 million barrels in the week of May 13th. Data from the U.S. Department of Energy showed. And stockpiles in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve fell to 538 million barrels, the lowest since 1987. So yeah, I was wrong with my 400 million barrels, but it's down to 530. So that's still, not near the full amount that we would need, because I'm not an expert in this, but I'm assuming they made that 700 plus million barrels, to that's probably the cap or the minimum amount of oil we need to keep the country running for an amount of time. So the more they draw from it, the less oil and less time we're gonna have to use it. So anyways, anything you wanted to end off on the Strategic Petroleum Reserves?
I'm not averse to the ideas of diversifying,
mm-hmm.
The energy,
mm-hmm.
Or at least the sources of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so difficult for me to even keep my head in the game and know exactly who's right, who's wrong in terms of solutions. It's a really tricky subject.
Mm-hmm.
I will concede at least that.
All right, and then our next link, we start going into kind of scary stuff. Well, I mean, obviously this stuff's already been scary, but so we'll get in this one from Wall Street Journal. So Saudi Arabia considers accepting yen instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales, and this is a story also back from March. And I tried looking up some updates on it, and there's no updates yet. I think they're still in the talks. But if this doesn't like come out to you as something that's very destructive for especially the USA, then you're in a good place to learn about it now. Because if the Saudis accept yen for oil, because right now they only accept dollars. It's only the petrodollar, which props up a lot of our economy. People have to exchange their currencies into our currencies, and it keeps the dollar propped up and lets us keep this kind of lavish lifestyle. Now, obviously, there's a lot of problems with Saudi Arabia and everything else, but in terms of the global power structure, this is going to weaken us on a global stage. I can't get the whole thing because I don't have it paid for, but let's just get in the first paragraph of this. Saudi Arabia is in active talks with Beijing to price some of its oil sales to China in yen. People familiar with the matter said a move that would dent the U.S. dollar's dominance of the global petroleum market and a mark of another shift by the world's top crude exporter towards Asia. So obviously that kind of lays it out there for you. If the Saudis start accepting yen, the dollar goes down and all of our quality of life goes down with it. So I don't know if there's anything we can really do about this other than strengthening ourselves as a nation, which I don't think is happening right now. This is just something that really, really stood out to me when it happened back in March. And, if it does come down the pipeline that they do start accepting it, you should really get ready for some disastrous effects from that. Get your money out of the dollar if that happens, basically. Anything you want to add in on that?
I mean, looking at this, what really jumps out at me is them having to make that adaptation. And it's very likely that could be for the survival of themselves, having to resort to taking different currency.
Oh, Saudis?
Yeah. It's likely that might be a sustainable market, and they probably know that. It's likely they are not unaware of that.
Well, that's
something that jumps in. It's just another theory.
Yeah. Well, that and they might be observing that the U.S. is coming down, as a world superpower, and China and Russia are going up, so they might be hopping on the train with them, and this is one sign of it. So, and Russia, China are not good actors. Like, for the people that say that America is a bad country and we do bad things, it won't be comparable to the things that Russia or China would do if they were the global superpower on top. So, this is bad, basically saying. And sticking along with that, another article that kind of dents the dollar. It's from Forbes. So, God, these fucking ads. Russia moved to gold may jolt your company. So, suffering from U.S. and EU sanctions, Russia made a surprise move. Its central bank fixed the price of 5,000 rubles to a gram of gold. So, like this article said, few Western investors or executives even noticed. And this is just, this is another thing. Because we got off our gold standard back in the 60s, and it has been one of the main reasons for inflation since then and weakening of our dollar. That's
haunting, dude. Few Western investors or executives noticed. How the fuck wouldn't you notice something like that?
I know, right? Yeah, this was a very smart move on Russia's part, because now people have to use or they have to pay in ruble. It's somewhere in this article. I didn't want to read the whole thing to you guys. But yeah, basically, the world is going to have to exchange its currency into rubles, or they're going to have to pay for gold for anything from Russia. And basically, this is a really good move for them after the war happened, because all these Western countries started putting in sanctions, and once they did this and tied their currency to gold, they tied it to something that's actually valuable. It's no longer fiat. It's something that's actually, you can go down to a bank there, I think. I mean, I don't know about this, but and probably exchange your rubles for dollar, or exchange your rubles for gold, which is it's a very powerful thing monetarily. So along in this article, it goes along with the last article. Russia is alone in this desire. China has been explicit in its desire to displace the dollar and make the yen more central, Mitchell said. Now, obviously goes along with what we were just saying about Saudis might accept yen for oil. So really, it's like this cabal between China and Russia to bring us down. If their combined efforts are doing this to bring down the dollar, I don't want to know what their next move is. I mean, I do want to know, but I don't want to live through it. Like it's gonna be a really rough world if the dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency.
Financial bloodbath.
Yeah. Obviously, it'll be good for China and Russia, but as far as people living here, middle class people and the poorer people here, they're gonna get hit the hardest, basically. Because it trickles down through everything. If there's not as much investment in the dollar, there's not much money coming in. There's not money for projects. People don't have discretionary money to spend. It goes all down the pipeline with negative effects and consequences on the economy. So this is another thing that really, it's just very depressing. And as I said, people who don't like America and root for its downfall, this will be good news for them. But obviously, as someone living in America, and I don't plan on living in any other country in the world, it's not a very good prospect for my future or my family's future, or people who I care about their future as well. Anything else to add on to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's likely, what I'm going to say is probably more relevant to the last article, but it's likely they're not too hot about all the funny money that the Fed has been pumping out for the last 2 years. I'm certain they're not unaware of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then we'll move on. Move on to the next link we got here. So it's another one from Russia, and this is going to be bad for the people, mainly for the people in Europe, but it is going to affect us eventually. So this is from Washington Post. Russia's gas cuts to Europe in summer could bring a bitter winter, and that's kind of a, what's the word? That's downplaying what's actually going to happen. It's going to be really rough over there. I don't have the article here, but I was reading something that Germany is switching off of gas because they don't have any more, or most of its gas, because they don't have all of those imports from Russia anymore, and they're switching back to coal. So they're starting to get coal-fired power plants going again with a country that's, Germany is basically leading the world in kind of climate policy. It's kind of very hypocritical of them to go, to coal, although it's what they need, but basically, yeah. So Europe Russia cut off Europe to most of their gas. This means that energy prices are going to soar over there. They're going to have to start using coal, like I said, and polluting a lot more. So the air quality is going to go down. People's quality of life is going to go down. They're not going to have enough money because they're going to be spending more money on energy. So let's get into this a little bit. So as tensions between Europe and Moscow rise over the war in Ukraine, Russia has sharply reduced gas flow to the continent. Its move, officials say, is deliberate political retribution for Europe's support of Kyiv. So yeah. So they basically cut off and go into what I was just saying is it's not going to be a good prospect for people living in Europe this year. And I don't know. The war in Russia is definitely, or the war in Ukraine is definitely a bad thing. I don't support Russia or condone their actions at all, but as far as NATO and a lot of European countries getting involved when there's no strict pacts or anything like that, it's kind of I don't know, it's just it's sad that they involved themselves in something that they really didn't need to be involved in. Obviously it's a bad thing, but it's just like one of these situations, like what do you do? Like this, it could be wartime, and then the things that NATO and Europe has done are going to push us closer into war. And if Europe and NATO gets into a hot war with Russia, you can kiss our way of life goodbye. Basically, we're gonna have to go back to living the way not just our parents did, but the way our grandparents did. We'll have our technology, but we're gonna be desperate for food, energy, money, clothes.
It's modern day Stone Age.
Yeah, exactly. I really think that's what this global push, whatever the transition we're in right now, they're trying to stratify the classes. They want to push all the people that are in the middle class to be poor, basically. Because the middle class people have a lot of power, and they have a lot of dispersed power, and they, like, the elites do not like that. They want the power centralized to where they can control it and control people. And people having a middle class lifestyle and income really threatens that way of life for them. So I really hope, I don't know, things get better. I know I keep saying that, but they're not going to get better. I just wanted to let you guys know about this. If anybody's watching over in Europe, get ready. I don't even know what I'd do right now if I was in Europe. I would just be trying to get out, probably try to fly over here to America, because I think there eventually is going to be a hot war. If there isn't a hot war, then there's going to be some reshuffling of the global economy and the class system over there, to where the standard of life for most people is going to go down dramatically. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think what really saddens me is how many regular people there are in the United States who have begrudgingly accepted this as the new standard of normal living. Without really going into too much detail, if I didn't know any better looking at all these things, I would suggest that it's almost as if they're trying to leave the American populace destitute, intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not just the American populace, but all middle class populace around the world that has any sort of say over how their life goes.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're poor, there's very little choice you can make. There's very little opportunity you have. There's very little power you have. You have a small voice, basically. And the dispersed power of the middle class of the world has been a big thorn in these elites' side. And I think this whole whatever's happening right now is going to decimate them. And as someone who's trying to be in the middle class, eventually it's not a very good prospect to look forward to. But yeah, so now we'll come a little bit closer to home. So the next article we got is from The Guardian. I'm sure you guys are all experiencing this. U.S. inflation hits 40-year high of 8.6% as food, gas, and shelter costs rise. So inflation rate sends stock markets into tailspin as S&P 500 falls over 2%, NASDAQ down over 3%. Obviously, stock market is not, I know a lot of people are in the stock market, but that's not what affects our day-to-day lives, for most people. What we're seeing is higher food costs, higher gas costs, higher energy costs. Like, when we're not getting the raises to meet these higher costs. Like, the
most basic of utilities nearly unaffordable to the average person.
They're destroying our discretionary spending, and any this it goes back to what I was saying about they're trying to destroy the middle class, because they're the only ones that can afford to spend a little bit more on these things. If you're poor, you can just go get government subsidies, most of the time. But if you're middle class, you're not getting any of that help, and this is hurting you the most, because middle class and those who are poor, who can't get aid and whatnot, it's going to hit everyone really hard. And you guys might have seen some of my memes on the page, but last year it was 2.4%, then went up to 3.6, and then 5.4, and then 7.2, and then now it's at 8.6% over the last year, which is, we're almost paying more than 10%. And this is the official rate. Take that into account. This isn't taking, this isn't if you're paying for gas, obviously that's gone up. Like 2 years ago, it was maybe $3 a gallon, $2 a gallon on average.
Like here in California.
Yeah. The national average is probably like $2.50, and now the national average is at $5 a gallon. That is 100% increase in your costs. And the people who are commuting, that is destructive to their, not just their wallets, but their lives. And a lot of people don't even think they can even make it to work anymore because it's becoming too expensive. And that's especially a problem here in California, where gas is almost $7 a gallon. And they're going to propose a new gas tax coming down the pipeline next week or in the beginning of July, and it's just like, these fucking people and these politicians need to just stop doing this fucking shit to us, man. Like, it's fucking evil. Like in the middle of all this crap, they're proposing new taxes on gas and new taxes. Like, what do you think that's going to do to people? Like, when inflation's already 8.6%, it's fucking insane. And it's just, there's so many things that they could do to alleviate some of these problems, but they don't want to do any of it because of all the problems I just said. They don't want to help the middle class out. This is a ploy from them to destroy them. Yeah, and it's rough. But anyways, let's get a little bit into it. Inflation in the U.S. rose unexpectedly. I love how their wording of this. Last month to a fresh 4-year decade high of 8.6%. The Labor Department said on Friday. And obviously these are things we talked about. The CPI is up. The gas prices are soaring. Energy prices are going up. See, energy prices right here, 34.6% rise of energy costs. If you're on a fixed income and you need to heat your home in the winter, this is like this like you're gonna have to choose between being warm and having food. Like, these are not choices that we should have to make in the first world, but they're making us make because they're not setting forward the policy that is going to kind of alleviate some of these stresses on us. They're making it worse. Obviously this has affected the stock market. It crashed last week. We're gonna get into that, but
is the irony of Biden's walk and chew gum mantra? Can't even choose between electric and food, or you have to make the choice between that. It just baffles me. You think this was a lot of it, the red tape that's out there. You won't really know that it's there until you run face first into it. And just about everyone I know is running into the red tape of all the byproducts of these decisions that the elite are making.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't even have the words, dude. Just crazy to watch so many people just accept that as a new standard of living.
It's just so sad. I was telling Chris before we started the show, it really is the boiling frogs in a pot metaphor. Like, if this would all been dropped on us, if this 8.6% inflation would have been dropped on us in a day or over a week or month 2 years ago, people would not be putting up with it. They'd be protesting. They'd be rioting. They'd be fucking getting their goddamn politicians out of office. The incumbents that have been there for fucking decades that aren't doing a goddamn thing.
They wouldn't have raided Area 51. They would have gone to the Federal Reserve.
Exactly.
If they knew.
Yeah, we're getting fully distracted. And if they just do it slowly, I mean, obviously people are starting to notice now, but it's not as much of a shock as if it would have happened over a shorter time span. So people are really getting used to the new inflation and the new prices on things. And I've heard from a few experts that this inflation isn't going away. Like, once, like, the inflation, like, the prices will stop going up eventually, but once it caps out, they're not going to come back down. Those are just going to be the new prices, forevermore, basically. And that's a really sad prospect too, because that's a for sure way to lower your quality of life, is to, like I was saying, if you're on a fixed income and you don't have a lot of money for extra things, a bigger chunk is going to be coming out of that fixed income for things that you need, food and energy. So I don't even want to know what's going to be next month. It's going to be worse. It's going to be worse the month after that. I don't even know what to say about this other than, like, maybe just stock up food now. Don't panic buy, obviously, but just make sure you have enough supplies. It might be a good idea now to order stuff like tires. What else? Maybe fill up gas cans. Just other products, because, as an example, the reason I say tires is because I used to buy my tires on my car. The cheapest ones I could get were like $85, which is, it's a pretty good deal for me. They're bigger tires. So I get a whole set for, about $300. But now the tires that I just had to put on were $135 each. And that's a almost, 60 to 70% increase in those costs. And obviously tires you don't have to do all the time, but I think it would be a good idea to get your hand on some of these products that are just going to keep going up right now, so that you can have them when you do need them.
It's kind of a random fact, but a lot of the tires that I work with, when helping my friends change their tires in their car, they're imported straight out of Mexico. So that technically falls under foreign import, and that's been heavily staggered as a result of all of this. So, so much as tires, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, like I was saying, get some of those products that you don't think you'll need in the next couple months, but you're going to need, like tires and I don't know, maybe cars and stuff like that. Nothing's coming to my mind right now, but I'm sure you guys know the kind of products I'm talking about. That you might not buy every month or every day, but you might buy them every year, you know, and it's better to buy them right now when the price isn't inflated, you know, because next, you know, in a couple months, the price will be even more, you know. I mean, just another thing on the tire thing. When I bought my tires, like I was saying, they were 135. I checked back a week later, they were 145. So you guys got to get your hands on these things now. Like, it's not getting any better. So now we're gonna hop into what the Fed is doing to try to curb all of this stuff. And I don't support the Fed. I think we need to end the Fed or at least audit it, because I don't think it's a good institution. It was created by Woodrow Wilson back in 1914, I believe.
Even if you just audited it and publicized your findings, any reasonable person would take a look at that and think that the next solution is just cutting them out entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, it was an elitist institution, basically, and it's a big topic to get into, the Fed. But basically, they control interest rates, how much they're going to lend out money for and how much banks can lend out money for. And this story, Fed raises interest rates by 0.5%, largest move since 2000. So the Federal Reserve on Wednesday raised short-term interest rates by 0.5% as a part of an effort to tamp down the inflationary pressures weighing on Americans. So this is a big increase. So ever since 2000, there have only been, and that was the dot-com crash, which we're going to get into soon here. They've only been raising it by a quarter point. So very small, very gradual.
Wait, did this just happen on Wednesday?
This happened back in May.
Oh.
So we're going to get into the 0.75% increase. That happened last week. Which puts... anyway, we'll get into that.
Sorry.
So this was the biggest increase since then. So this means that home prices or the total cost of a home is going to go up. Home loans are going to go up. Credit card loans are going to go up. Auto loans are going to go up, because this is basically it's not a tax, but it can kind of be compared to that on the goods that we need to forward our lives, such as houses, cars, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because the point of this is to try to curb spending from the populace to get inflation to decrease. So this is why they're doing that, because they want to de-incentivize people just buying things on credit, which is, it's a good thing. People shouldn't be buying things on credit, but they're kind of manipulating the market in a way that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Part of that desperate measure stuff you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a desperate measure. It's like
rob Paul to pay Peter.
It's like, I guess, like, since the Fed exists, this is what they need to do, but this is going to hurt so many people. And then we'll get in the next story, which is not much different. So that was back in May, where they raised the interest rates by 0.5%. And this is the next story from the Hill, and this just happened last week. Fed hikes rates by 0.75 or 75 basis points for the first time since 1994. So that's basically 0.75% on top of the already 0.5%. So what I think we're at 1.25% right now. I think it's at 1.5% actually. I could be wrong, but that is going to, like, that astronomically increases the prices of homes, of cars, just because the money you're borrowing, you're going to have higher interest rate. So they're going to charge you more over time to borrow money.
Jesus, man.
So business loans, you're not going to be able to get a business loan as easy. So it's going to hurt the people that don't have a lot of money, or middle class people that are looking to start a business or something, or maybe buy a home. Actually, this goes to me. This is a personal story for me. I was going to buy a home last year. Interest rates were still at 0%, I believe. And when the first rate hike came down, that basically put me out of the housing market for a couple of years, because I can't afford that. I have a very specific savings that I've had. I can't just use that on a loan right now that's going to cost me more over the long run, as if I would just wait, and just maybe rent a place for a while. So it's really sad. I could have bought a house, but in spite of this, now I can't, and I don't know when the interest rates are going to come back down to make that possible for me, unless I get a super good job or something. So It's very daunting.
It's belittling almost.
So Federal Reserve announced on Wednesday they would hike interest rates this month at the fastest pace in nearly 30 years. So it was the biggest since 2000 with the 0.5 increase, but now with the 0.75 increase, it's the biggest one in 30 years. So after a discouraging May surge in inflation, so obviously they're doing this to tamp down on that, to get people to stop taking loans that they don't need. Obviously that stopped me. Like that's a full anecdotal evidence for you guys. Obviously it's just an anecdote, but it's a very real world effect of what's happened here. You know, they've priced a lot of people out of the housing market right now, and with housing prices starting to drop, they've trapped a lot of people in their houses. You know, they're not going to be able to move because they're not going to be able to afford a loan on a new house, or they won't even get approved for it because the interest rates will be higher. So this all goes back to, you know, our standard of living is going down. It's going down very rapidly. So they're looking to get the interest rate in between 1.5 to 1.75%. That's not enough. I think they're going to have to hike it to at least 3-4% before things actually start, the inflation actually starts to come down. And a couple days before this story, they were actually debating whether or not they should have done a full point increase, you know, 100% or a 1 point increase, and that would have put at a 2% interest rate. And that's the kind of extreme measures that the Fed needs to take to actually do anything about inflation. With all these little things, they're kind of putting off the pain until a later date instead of just like raising the rates now, disincentivizing people taking out loans, and trying to fix the economy faster, because this is going to be a lot longer of a downturn, you know, recession and market crashes than it would be without the Fed, or if they would just put these rate hikes in very quickly.
It's almost borderline usury, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just in such a situation, and I don't know what to do about this. Like, obviously, you can't buy a house. A lot of people got priced out of buying a house. I don't know, like, because this incentivizes people to save their money instead of spending it. And that is going to go to our next link with the market crash. So obviously, with less discretionary spending in people's wallets, less money they can just burn, the stock market is fucking crashing. And I have a good amount of money in the stock market, so it's not hasn't been a good couple weeks for me. But everything that I put money into is a long-term investment, so I'd never plan on taking anything out. But if there was an emergency and I needed that money, I'd be losing a lot of money, which is very concerning to me, because I was saving money over the pandemic, and I didn't want to save it in dollars, so I put it in crypto and in stocks. Those are doing good for a while, and I probably should have sold while they were at their peak. But I realized that there were long-term investments, and I might have to go through some of these things. But like I was saying, if I have to pull out that money before the markets come back up, I'm going to be out of a lot of resources, basically. Yeah. So let's get into this a little bit. So the crash in NASDAQ is looking a lot like the bursting of the 2000 dot-com bubble, and that lasted almost 3 years. So that's just a scary kind of prospect to think about, is that this is the start of a 3-year downturn in the economy, and we won't be coming out of it for a while. So a couple key points here. The NASDAQ stock index is plunging faster than during the dot-com crash in 2000, judging at bad money makers on Wall Street. Back then, the index fell around 2.5 years and only regained its 2000 peak after roughly 15 years. So, people that had their money in, like me, that's long-term invest, I could have to wait a decade plus to be able to take my money out and make sure I don't lose anything. But with the inflation of the dollar, it's like I'll be losing stuff anyway. If I sell for the same exact amount that I put in when I did put it in, that still won't be worth as much as when I did put it in, just because of inflation and the cost of goods and everything going up. So it's a fucking struggle. And so I wanted to show you guys a graphic here. So this is the NASDAQ composite of so percent decline, basically 141 trading days after its peak. So 2000 dot-com crash, you can see here, it's somewhere between, it's 25.2%. The 2008 financial crisis was only 13.8%. And that was basically a full housing market crash. Obviously it was a big thing because a lot of people lost their houses. Can't do a lot of things when you don't have a house. And look at our fucking sell off now. We're at 32.7%. We are still in the middle of it. So we don't even know how bad it's going to get yet. This is already twice as worse as the 2008 financial crisis. We haven't even started the recession yet. Like, this is going to be so bad. Like, I don't know how else to explain to you guys that this is going to be, like, this is going to cause a global depression. We're in for some tough years. I'm very scared of what's going to happen, basically. And let me see if there's anything else I wanted to show you. So yeah, Fed. Okay, and then the other scary part of this is that back in 2000, during the dot-com bubble, the Fed was actually decreasing the interest rates to incentivize people to spend money, get in the market, take out loans. But now, the Fed has to be increasing rates while inflation is happening. So we're in double trouble right now. Like, the Fed is harming us. We have inflation up our ass. Like, there is no. It's almost like there's no fucking with Pandora's box, the silver lining with the Pandora's box. There's, I don't know how bad it's gonna get, but I know it's gonna be a lot worse than 2008. It's gonna be a lot worse than 2000. We're looking at a depression, in my opinion, on the scale of the Great Depression, or probably even worse. So, in terms of that, what did people do back then? Just live simply. Don't spend your money on crazy stuff. Don't put your money into stocks that you think are gonna be failing. Not financial advice, but just do what you think is best for you and your family. Just don't try to be saving money. Try to stock up on resources, and just try to weather this out, because this is a global storm that's coming. Anything to add on to that?
I mean, my train of thought was a bit disturbed. I saw just a few Zelensky ads on the side.
Oh yeah.
When we were talking, I was like, no fucking way.
Yo.
It's the programming at work.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use the term zero-sum game, because I don't want to leave a lot of people my age and slightly older than me bereft of any hope that things will get better. But it's not looking good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then I think our last link is just going right along with that, the incoming recession. So this isn't a lot of experts are saying it's going to happen. Some experts saying it's not going to happen. Like some of the people at the fucking White House and the administration, they're just saying, oh, there's not going to be a recession. You'll be fine. No, all these signs are pointing to something much worse than the 2008 recession. We're going into a global depression here. And if you don't understand that, you're going to have tough times ahead. Real tough times. So basically, what's the title of this? So S&P 500 confirms bear market as recession worry grows. So to me, this is not a worry of recession. We're going down this path. It's going to be a recession first. It's going to be a depression after that, and it's going to get really bad. So this came right after the 75-point, or right before the 75-point hike in the interest rates. Getting in the story, U.S. equities tumbled on Monday, with the S&P 500 confirming it is in a bear market as fears grow that the expected aggressive interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve would push the economy into a recession. Which I like we were just saying, we have interest rates to be worried about and a higher inflation rate to worry about, and it's not a good combination for anybody that has money right now, unless you're, I don't know, maybe Nancy Pelosi and knows where all the strings are being pulled, and knows where to put your money. It's gonna be really rough. I don't know how we're gonna get out of this. And basically, bear market is just when stocks come down a certain percentage from their peak, and we're in that downturn right now, like an avalanche. Yeah. So, in my opinion, this is a global reshuffling of things. I think most small businesses are going to be put out of business. They're not going to be able to work because it's just going to be too expensive for them. There's not going to be any profit incentive to keep these businesses going, especially the smaller businesses. And the bigger companies will survive. Places like Apple, Walmart, Target, Microsoft, all those will be good. I think the bigger cryptos will be good. But this is going to wipe out anything that's small. All of the smaller wealth in the world and in the country, it's going to be wiped out from this, and it's going to cause the stratification. It's going to destroy the middle class. It's going to push most of those people into poverty, basically, or near to poverty, which is just going to be really sad. And I don't know. I hope that the information that we're getting out right now can find a lot of people, so they start making good decisions in their lives about what to do over the next coming months. Just because I'm really worried, like it's gonna be bad. Do you have anything else to add on this?
Yeah.
Before we get in the conclusion.
Well, I mean, if I could offer my conclusion now, I mean, I wish I could say that this was
go for it. Yeah.
byproduct of just bad decision making, but it's just it's too intricately connected. So I mean, just looking at it all, fucking, it's just a premeditated attempt to leave people destitute. There's just no fucking way this is done out of incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's all planned. In my opinion, it's all planned. Like, this has all been planned since
That's just
before
my honest
COVID.
opinion. Just like throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, just conclude with you guys and give you guys a little bit of what I think needs to happen, what you should do in your daily lives. Do some of those things, stock up on food. Don't be spending money that you don't have to. Don't be taking out loans that you don't have to. Pare down a lot. If you're a business owner, it might be time to lay off some employees and scale down the business, because it'd be better to scale down than losing the business entirely and having to go bankrupt.
Just be fiscally wary.
Yeah, so that's one of the first things to do. The next thing, like I was saying in our episode, this episode and the California episode that I did, try to get out of urban areas where things are going to get really bad. Because the food shortages are going to hit the places with the most people first, because obviously those places are going to have the most demand.
They already are.
Yeah.
It's scary enough to say.
So people are going to be starving. People are going to get really desperate, and that's never a good place to be in. You want to be in a community, in a place where people have your back, and you know your neighbors, and you'll be able to weather the storm a little bit better. But if you're in one of these urban areas where things when shit hits the fan, it is going to really hit the fan, and people are going to be resorting to desperate measures to get what they need to survive and have their families survive. It's not going to be a pretty picture. There's going to be a lot of theft. There's going to be a lot of violence, murders,
robbing Paul to pay Peter.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be all the negative aspects of of human society. So that would be my next recommendation. Get to a place where you're going to be safe, and where people around you share your values, and a place that doesn't have too many people. Like I'm moving to a city, if everything goes to plan, I'm moving to a city about 20,000 people, which, isn't too many, but there's still enough people there to have a good society and a good community with, so it's not a tiny town, but there's still enough people there to make the local economy work if everything goes to shit.
Just a lot of good, like-minded people to unite with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the place I'm going is Wyoming, and the people out there are very self-reliant. They're very neighborly. The place has a lot of natural coal and oil reserves, so if the world gets cut off from those things, I'll be in a place where there is energy reserves, where I keep telling my family this, but it's like if things really get bad, I can just go down to the coal mine, dig some coal, use that to heat our home. Around here, what are you gonna do? Chop trees? I mean, you could always do that. You can chop trees, but trees aren't gonna last a long time. You need stronger and more plentiful energy sources like coal, gas.
There's really not a whole lot of rural areas that are abundant in those resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mostly inner city. Folk who are gonna be dependent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so move to a good place. Some other things you could do, obviously. Here, I wrote them down here. So obviously some things that you could do politically, definitely get out and vote in them primaries. Primary these people who are not doing anything about the problems. Especially Republicans. Republicans got a lot of corruption in their ranks right now.
Oh shit. I could actually add something really good to that.
Go ahead.
I mean, there was a local primary that was happening here in the county, and I know a lot of people are under the impression that maybe it's just a primary that's just gonna it's just a scrimmage match. You're gonna have a chance in the general to vote for whoever the hell, right? There was a lot of the races that were decided in the primary that I will not be seeing going to the general. So, I mean, I know the results would have been much different for a couple of the campaigns that I was working on if a lot of people had been informed of that way in advance from the general election, around the primary time, you could actually put some serious change. So definitely what he was saying about the primaries and shit. Yeah, dude, take that seriously.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem with here in California because we have it's the top 2 contenders get the vote. It's not we don't have party primaries here. We have an open primary. So the people here, it's the people who run here, it's very full of corruption because of that fact, because all they have to do is get the most number of votes. It doesn't matter of which demographic or which party they're going for, as long as they get the most votes, and then it's going to be between the top 2 vote earners, which makes for a very corrupt system. So California, it's not going to be good. I really don't like our system here. I would much prefer a ranked choice, or at least a closed primary, a closed party primary, where you don't have every single candidate on the ballot for a primary. You just have the ones from your party, and that would make it a lot easier to get representation.
Shit, I hardly think there's even a political solution to California's problems.
No, go watch the California episode we did. There's too many problems. If you live in California, get the fuck out. It's not going to be good for anyone. The laws that they're passing and the culture that's developing here is not going to be good. It's going to be so destructive, and I don't want to be here to see it. So that's another thing. Vote. In your primaries, definitely vote in the general. Don't forget that. Go out, protest, do some activism. Get your friends on board with kind of combating the narrative from the media on this stuff, and combating your politicians on the stuff they want to do, like increasing taxes, gas taxes, all that stuff. What else? You could always run for office. I know this is a hard kind of thing to do, but you can all the way from Senate, Congress, nationally, or you could run for city council, or even like a commissioner or sheriff. If you're a good person, you have good morals and good principles, we need you to run. Like, we need good people out there, because most of these people are corrupt, just fucking people that are in there for themselves and just in there to make money. So we need good people. That goes without saying, basically, but we need good people representing us, because most of them are not good people. Anything else here? Vote, run for office. I'm actually going to work on a campaign out in New Hampshire, so I'm actually going to be on the ground, trying to get a candidate I believe in to win for Congress. So if there's anything like that you can do, definitely hop on board any campaigns that you see. If anybody wants any recommendations or advice or even connections to get on a campaign, definitely let me know. I got all those connections for you. I can get you started if you really want to get out there and be on the ground. I mean, that's what I like doing most, like talking to the voters and getting a good relationship with them and understanding the problems on the ground. And so many people talk about all his philosophy and whatnot, but when it comes down to it, when you go up to somebody's door and they're struggling, they need help. They need the government off their fucking back, and not just the government, but all of the economic crap that's coming down the pipeline too. So yeah, basically just get out, be active. We got to do something about this. It's not going to get better if we don't do anything. So if there's anything else you want to add, Chris, before I end it here.
Yeah, I mean, just what he was saying, if there's even a sliver of hope that some of you might hold, seeing a lot of the grim statistics we've shown you, it's a little more than just hope it's going to take to get through something like that. You have to actively get out there to, secure the existence of a better future.
You have to act.
You actually have to get your hands dirty, put in the work to see the future you want.
You can't just be arguing on Facebook. I know I'm guilty of this a lot, but you got to get out there. You got to be courageous. Yeah. You can't take this bullshit, because if we don't do anything, it's just gonna keep getting worse, and our children are gonna have to put up with the consequences, and I don't want to see a future like that. But anyways, I hope you guys learned some good things here in this podcast. I really hope things do get better, but I don't think they will. Like I was saying, just get prepared and be ready for what's coming. And I really wish everyone the best out there. And, it's going to be hard times, but we're going to get through it. So that's the end of the episode. Keep it spicy out there. We love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.